Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the BSN Sports podcast. Today is Tuesday, July 26th. Hopefully, everybody had a good rest of their day yesterday, and hopefully, everybody's having a good day so far here today. It is, in fact, Tuesday, July 26th here today. It is Tuesday. It is the game one of the Subway Series. As we all know, a quick two-game set between the Yankees and the Mets. The first day is always so exciting. The hype, the anticipation of the game tonight, 7:10 Eastern at Citi Field in Queens. Yankees, Mets. I'm fired up. I'm pumped up. You get up, Subway Series, game one. You get up a little extra energy in the morning for the game. That will be taking place, as we all know, later on today. So it's really just a waiting game because that's how it is. You get up and it feels like a playoff game. It feels like a playoff game, when you're watching the game. It feels like a postseason game. The result, if you lose, you feel like you just lost a postseason game. If you win, you feel like, you're on top of the world because, it's the battle for New York. That's really what it is. Anytime the Jets and Giants meet, it's always like that, although the Jets and Giants haven't been really competent at all when they meet. But when they meet, it's the same thing. That energy, same thing with the Nets, Knicks, whenever they meet, Rangers, Islanders, all rivalries. But Yankees, Mets too. I mean, we all know what it is, what the stakes are, and especially the way both teams are playing. Mets atop the NL East, Yankees atop the AL East. Can't get much better than this. Two teams leading their division, two teams on their way to the postseason, two teams that definitely need to make some moves at the deadline, but two teams that have been, phenomenal up to this point. So looking forward to that. Last night there was some baseball on. I was watching the Phillies-Braves game on MLB Network, and they had an interesting broadcast. CC was on it. It was an interesting broadcast. I was watching that. So it wasn't a ton on last night in terms of, obviously with the Yankees and Mets having a day off, wasn't a ton on for New York sports fans to watch. I watched a little bit of baseball. But tonight is the night we've all been waiting for, the night that we all kind of circle on our calendars when the schedule comes out to start the year. It is Yankees-Mets. It's game one of the quick two-game set Subway Series. So looking forward to that. All right, so let's get to the topics for today's podcast. A lot to get to. Veterans report today. The videos are already out of the Jets, players. Barrios coming in, Michael Carter, Elijah Moore, Corey Davis are just a few guys that have come in today. We've already gotten reports that Becton's in great shape, or what they're hearing is he's in great shape, which is, that's as big as news as you could get. That is excellent news, and now it's only a matter of time until he comes off the physically unable to participate list. And once he's off of that, he could start practicing. And, we're looking at a Becton off, on the offensive line, which is massive for this team. So that's all going on today. Players will also speak, coach, all that stuff. So that stuff will go on later this morning. But we're going to get to the Giants training camp preview today. Yesterday I did the Jets. Today I'm going to do the Giants. So wrapping up my training camp previews today, as by the end of today, all 32 NFL teams will have reported to training camp, and tomorrow, for most, it will be the beginning of the training camp into the season, which is really, really, really pretty exciting. So we'll get to the Giants. All you need to know, similar to what I did yesterday with the Jets, this time with the New York Giants. We're also going to get to some baseball. So just like yesterday, going from football to baseball, we're going to get to the Red Sox. We're going to talk a little bit about the Boston Red Sox because they have been terrible. And they just lost. They won last night 3-1 against the Guardians. But they lost 3 straight, got swept by the Toronto Blue Jays at Fenway coming out of the All-Star break, and it was really embarrassing. And I have some numbers that I did. I crunched some numbers this morning just based off of how bad they've been over this stretch of 10 games where they're 2-8. And their run differential is now down to in the negative, so they have more runs allowed than they do runs scored. And after that 3-game set against Toronto, could Boston be sellers at the deadline? Could guys like Bogarts, JD Martinez be available to teams out there after they had a great month of June, really month of May, June? Now they're really having a bad month of July. Could they be sellers at the deadline? We'll get to that. We'll also finish things off with the New York Sports Update. Yankees, Mets tonight. Pumped up, fired up, ready for it, excited for it. Really looking forward to the game tonight. Subway Series, quick 2-game set. So should be good. So Anyway, with all that being said, a lot to get to today on the program. This is the BSN podcast, and let's get into it. So today, we're going to get into my Giants training camp preview. As you all know, yesterday, if you saw the video, if you didn't, and if you're interested, the video's up on YouTube. Posted it yesterday. Jets training camp preview was yesterday. Today, I'm going to get to the Giants, so quick Monday, Tuesday training camp preview. Wrap these up today, and then we'll get into training camp. And you know the drill, how I usually do it. I usually do updates periodically throughout training camp. Things you're hearing. If there's any, big news coming out of training camp, or and any news really come out of training camp, I'll talk about it. But this is going to wrap up the previews for the training camp. Yesterday, like I said, did the Jets. Now we're on to the Giants. Veterans reporting today. At the end of today, all 32 teams will have fully reported to training camp, and things will be really getting underway today and into tomorrow and throughout this next week and into August and all that good stuff throughout the summer and into September with the game starting. So really looking forward to all that. Really exciting time as a football fan. But we're going to get to the Giants today. And similar to the Jets, the Jets storylines going in was Becton. Now, if Becton seems healthy, he seems like his weight is in check, that's a storyline that is no longer a story. I mean, that's not a storyline anymore, and that's great. The Jets go into training camp right now with really no storylines. Now, there's always going to be storylines. People are going to make them up. How does Zach Wilson look? How does this guy look? And the storyline going into Giants training camp is obviously how do the two new rookies look. The two big-time first-round picks in Kayvon Thibodeau and Evan Neal. And that's obviously something that Giants fans are going to want to look out for. How does Evan Neal look at that right tackle spot? How does he look like on the offensive line? They obviously have a lot of offensive line upgrades, a lot of different moves they've moved to the offensive line. I mean, the Giants have done a complete overhaul of the offensive line. So it's really going to be interesting. I feel like one of the bigger storylines for the New York Giants is going to be how the offensive line looks. What does it look like in training camp? Are they meshing together? Because when you bring in a bunch of new faces, it takes time to mesh. It takes time to, build chemistry. It takes time for, all the pieces to be in the right spot and all the pieces to click going into week one. So that's going to be something that they're going to have to work out the rust throughout training camp and into the regular season, especially if you want to protect Daniel Jones, because we all know going into the season, another storyline, how does Daniel Jones look? Look, Daniel Jones is going into, a year where if he doesn't have a good season, if he doesn't have a productive year, he's not going to be the quarterback for the New York Giants next season. He's going into his fourth season. To say he has underplayed to that first round pick is an understatement. I mean, he hasn't been anywhere close to the first round pick anybody saw coming. I think we all, maybe not saw coming, I think we all kind of expected Daniel Jones to be that, not to be. I think we all kind of saw he was overdrafted. He was overdrafted. And I think a lot of people in the moment didn't like it. Like everything, people found a way to kind of buy in, and it just hasn't worked out. And it's a new coach. It's a coach that did not bring him in. It's a GM that is inheriting Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones needs to have a good training camp. He needs to have a very good regular season if he wants to be the quarterback for the New York Giants for a long time, because this is a guy through his first 3 years that has really not done anything. I mean, he's had 3 losing seasons. His play has been here. It's been up and down. He has games where he plays well. He has games where he plays really bad. He's very inconsistent. So you have to hope that throughout training camp, that inconsistency works itself out. And it could just be coaching. If Daniel Jones gets the right coaching, could he take that leap? Giants fans were waiting for that year 1 to year 2 leap. They were waiting for that year 2 to year 3. Now it's that year 3 to year 4. Like, now you have to make the leap, because if you don't make the leap this year, you're not going to be the quarterback for much longer. So we're going to start with the offense, and Daniel Jones here on this training camp preview. He needs to show progress in training camp. He needs to show consistency. He needs to show that he's using all of his weapons to his ability, getting Kenny Golladay involved, which he was not able to do at all last year. Kenny Golladay did not reach the end zone once last season. We all know he was hurt, but even the games he was healthy, Daniel Jones just couldn't get the ball to him. And some of it was coverage, some of it was defense, but a lot of it was just Daniel Jones missing him, and a lot of it, in a way, was Daniel Jones being overwhelmed a little bit, and we've seen that a lot out of Daniel Jones. So you need to see him throughout training camp be consistent, show consistency, show confidence, show a lot more, just composure, confidence in the pocket, new offensive scheme, new coach, weapons around you. Utilize your weapons. And when you look at the Giants' offense, it's not spectacular, but you have a solid running back in Saquon Barkley when he's healthy. You know, we all know what Kenny Golladay is capable of. The big question is health. He wasn't healthy last year. He struggled last season. Put him in an new offensive scheme, put him, under Dable's system, he could thrive. We will see. He had some very good years in Detroit. And he's a guy that's capable of doing big things. He's just got to stay healthy. That's the big question with the Giants. And I think if the Giants can just get out of training camp healthy, go into the season with all their weapons, that's where they're most lethal. Because Barkley, he's one of the best running backs in the league when he's healthy. He hasn't been healthy. Golladay is a very good wide receiver, hasn't been healthy. Sterling Shepard, never healthy. Kadarius Toney, he's a guy that's rookie year. You're looking for him to make a jump. He's got to stay healthy. There's a lot of health concerns on this Giants offense. So you just got to hope that all this stuff gets turned around, because if it all can stay healthy, you're looking at a receiving core with Golladay, Barkley. You've just picked up Wan'Dale Robinson in the draft. He's a guy, Kentucky, explosiveness, a guy that could bring a lot to the table in terms of just his speed, explosiveness, his pass catching. He's a guy that the Giants bring in, could be that young kind of momentum shifter in a way. Could be that guy that just brings that spark to the team. You thought you got that in Toney. Wasn't always healthy last year. Also had he had an interesting season. He only played 10 games. He wasn't healthy much of last year. He had moments of really good moments of this guy's a stud, and he also had moments of this guy's really struggling. So the big thing you got to look for out of this Giants offense, quarterback-wise, it's got to be consistent. And consistency all the way around. Because the Giants offense, it's been like this the past 3 years. Guys out of the lineup, guys in, guys out, guys in and out, in and out. This guy's in this week. He gets hurt, in and out. It's just all been all over the place. And I think that's where a little bit of Daniel Jones's failure so far in the NFL, I don't want to say failure, that's a strong word, but his struggles, I should say, in the NFL so far have been all these moving pieces around him. Not only in the front office, coaching staff, and all that stuff, but it's also on the roster itself. So you got to trust that Joe Shane and all these guys brought in the right pieces. Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton's another one. But can he stay healthy? These are all guys that are good when they're out there. They just can't stay healthy. They have a receiving core that's capable of being really solid. Golladay, Shepard, and Kadarius Toney. Kadarius Toney, I know, was inconsistent last year, but he was hurt. He's a rookie. You're going to expect that. That's going to happen. Getting hurt on top of it doesn't help. You have to hope that he makes that year 2 jump. Wan'Dale Robinson brings a lot to that table that Toney does. He's quick. He's fast. Giants are looking for those type of receivers, it seems. So consistency. Running back, same thing, Barkley. You just got to hope he's healthy, right? Healthy, shows that explosiveness everybody's been seeing out of him, throughout his career when he's healthy. But it's another big year for the Barkley. Like I said, similar to the Jets last season, Giants enter a year where, I will say this, Giants have more question marks on offense than they do defense. I think the Giants defense has a couple really good pieces on it that could be really productive, not only this year, but for years to come. Giants have a lot of question marks on offense. It starts with the quarterback. Running back, same thing. Barkley's a guy. These are all guys. These are all pieces, other than Wan'Dale Robinson, a couple guys here and there, that Dable didn't bring in. Joe Shane didn't bring in. And this is the process the Jets went through last year, where the Jets last season, it was evaluation year. They struggled, but it was a year where they found what pieces fit, what pieces don't fit. They went into the offseason with a general picture of what they need to upgrade. They upgraded the position they need to upgrade. Now they got a roster ready to compete, right? Giants are in that process one. They're in step one, seeing what pieces don't fit. If Barkley doesn't have a good year this year, if he's injured, he's not going to be a Giant for much longer. Same thing with a lot of these receivers. I'm not trying to sound negative. I'm just telling the truth when it comes to Giants offense. It has potential to be really, really good, especially under a coordinator that worked with, especially under a head coach that worked with Josh Allen, one of the best quarterbacks in all of football. He was a big part of getting Josh Allen from where he was his rookie year, where he really struggled, accuracy, all that stuff, interceptions, decision-making, to where Josh Allen is now, where he's up there with Mahomes, Rodgers, and all the great quarterbacks in the NFL. And Allen, we all know what Buffalo is. I mean, they're a great team. They were primed for another Super Bowl run, primed for another Super Bowl contention. They didn't get to the Super Bowl, so I shouldn't say Super Bowl run, but they're a team that's right in the mix. They're a 12-13 win team again this year, right? Brian Dable can bring that and turn Daniel Jones into that. There's a lot of potential with this coach staff and this Giants team. I will tell you that. But they brought in a lot of new pieces. They also got a lot of pieces returning. Offensive line, too, like I said, it's all about consistency, building chemistry. From day one of camp, you're going to see maybe a little bit of, communication issues and all that stuff. But by the end of camp, late August, you should see this offensive line through preseason games, all that stuff. You should see it get a lot better. John Feliciano, being that center. Evan Neal, we all know what he did in Alabama was an absolute force. He's a guy that you want to see him get better each and every day at training camp. He's a guy that should come in, maybe show some struggles, but by the end, he should look like he is ready to play week 1, which will be against the Titans. So, a lot to look forward to with this Giants offense in terms of potential, but it's all about there's so many question marks. If those questions can get answered, if these guys can stay healthy and Daniel Jones can show progress, this offense has the pieces. It's all about putting it together. That's how I really see it. All right, and now to the defensive side of the ball. Like I said, I think the offense has so many questions. A lot of, like I've said this so many times, but offensive line, quarterback, all that stuff. Defensively, I don't see that many questions. I don't see many pieces on this defense that I really scratch my head at and say, well, what's happening here? I mean, you look at this defense where you have Azeez Ojulari, I think as you pronounce his name, who was the Giants' second-round pick last season, had a phenomenal rookie year. Guy who can come off the edge. And then you add, you got linebacker, edge kind of guy that could play both those. Then you add Kayvon Thibodeau to that mix. And, I mean, you look at 2 edge rushers. I mean, you have 2 guys, Thibodeau and Azeez Ojulari. Ojulari going into his second season, Thibodeau obviously the rookie. The Giants, similar to the Jets, and I'll say this is one thing the Jets and Giants have in common. Jets and Giants both have 2 very promising edges going into this season and years to come. Jets with, Carl Lawson. I'll start with the Giants with Thibodeau, and then Azeez Ojulari is just phenomenal. And that's something that the Giants fans, I think, should really, really look forward to. And the Jets, like I said, with Carl Lawson and Jermaine Johnson. Right? I mean, those are 2 guys that Jets fans should look forward to seeing. Same thing here with the Giants. This Giants pass rush, given a guy's in a second year and given a guy's going into his rookie year, these are 2 guys that are going to grow together. These 2 guys are going to progress together. These 2 guys, too, are going to go through up and downs together. I mean, Azeez Ojulari, his rookie season was, record-setting. He had his, great rookie year. Phenomenal rookie season out of Georgia for this Giants defense. And then you bring in Kayvon Thibodeau, who we all know what he brings to the table at Oregon and what he can bring. 2 guys that get off the line quick, 2 guys that can get to the quarterback. I mean, your edge rushers have potential to be lethal down the road. And they can be lethal now. But you have to realize there's going to be a growing stage with Thibodeau. Azeez Ojulari, year 2, having a really good year 1, he might just explode. I mean, he might just be that guy that really doesn't take much time, where he just explodes on the scene. He did it last year. And you add that to Thibodeau. And you look at the Giants secondary. Xavier McKinney, a piece that really, really solid piece. Young guy, showing a lot of progress. Julian Love, another guy, coming off a really solid year, still young. What is he, only 24 years old? And you look at Adoree Jackson, who was this free agent signing last season, had, a pretty nice year. Another guy to bring there to the table. Linebackers, Blake Martinez, Tay Crowder. Tay Crowder, a guy who was Mr. Irrelevant. He's actually made some impacts for this Giants team. Blake Martinez being kind of the head of the linebacking core. We know what he brings to the table, a veteran for this young defense. Giants have a young, exciting defense. Like a young, exciting defense. Azeez Ojulari, Thibodeau, Julian Love still pretty young, McKinney, all these guys. Tay Crowder, Dexter Lawrence, all these guys. They have they're pretty young, but they have a lot of explosiveness and a lot of excitement. And I'll tell you this, even though they lost James Bradberry in the offseason, he went to the Eagles, their secondary is still solid. And I know they lost, Logan Ryan as well, a veteran. But their secondary still has a lot of young and good talent. And Dory Jackson was a nice signing last year and a guy who you expect too, just under a coach. I mean, you just expect this team to be more competitive, better than what they were last year. And I think that's what makes this defense so exciting for the Giants, is that this defense was solid to begin with. New coach, new energy, new personnel in the building, a new belief around the Giants team. They can get only better, and they bring in more, and they only got better. They didn't lose much. They got better. Leonard Williams, Dexter Lawrence, and then Azeez Ojulari, Kayvon Thibodeau coming off the edge. I mean, that's a pretty scary defensive front for opposing teams. And you look at even the future of the NFC East. I mean, how good is the Cowboys' offensive line going to be? I mean, Tyron Smith's getting up there in age. I mean, there's a couple teams out there that the Giants are going to play that their offensive line is really weak. Those are golden opportunities to get to the quarterback. I mean, the Giants front really has potential to be lethal for years, and I will continue to say it, for a long time now. Like I said, offense, a lot of questions, but I think that's why the Giants hired an offensive-minded coach. There's a lot of questions. You bring in a guy like Dable who worked with the best in Josh Allen, a guy who knows what it takes to develop a quarterback. You bring him in to fix those question marks, answer those questions, right? Those guys that can't stay healthy, those guys that might be inconsistent, get those guys to be inconsistent players. With this defense, there's a lot of talent on this defense. So, Giants defense going into training camp, you should only expect it to get better. And obviously, all eyes will be on Thibodeau, right? Built for New York. It's a guy that, he's got the personality. I think he's gonna thrive here. And I said on draft night with the Jets and the Giants, I said I'd be happy with Sauce Gardner or Thibodeau. Jets took Sauce, thrilled with it. I think Sauce is gonna be a great guy. Same thing with the Giants. I said Giants couldn't go wrong taking Thibodeau or Sauce. Whoever the Jets didn't take, the Giants were going to take. That's the end. That's the end. At the end of the day, that's how it was going to be. Jets took Sauce. Giants took Kayvon Thibodeau. Two guys that I think are going to be great pieces for their team. Jets obviously in the secondary. Thibodeau coming off the edge. But he's got a personality. I think the big thing too is he was a little during like mini OTAs and stuff. Like he was wearing the non-contact jersey or whatever. And Dable said he'll be all right. So I guess that's the one thing. Just make sure that he's all right injury-wise. But I like the Giants' defense. And I tell you that. I mean, I do. They have a lot of nice pieces. Offensively, you know how I feel. I've always said this about the Giants. I don't think Daniel Jones is the answer. I don't think Daniel Jones is the answer. I've said this the night he got drafted. Don't think he's the answer. It's not that I don't like him. I just don't think he's good enough. I mean, that's at the end of the day. Now, you are bringing in Dable. Maybe Dable can change that. But when you look at this defense, Blake Martinez, solid piece, if he can stay healthy. He's a guy there. Solid piece. Now, Blake Martinez last season, he only played 3 games, right? I forget. He was hurt too last year. I forget what he was out with. But he's a guy when he's healthy. You know what he brings to the table. Dory Jackson, Julian Love, Xavier McKinney. Those being your secondary guys, Julian Love showed a lot of, in his third year last year, he's only 24 years old. He actually had a very solid year last year, given it was his third year, and he played every single game. So he's a guy that was healthy, and he was out there. He's only missed 1 game throughout his entire NFL career. So he's a guy, last season had a really good year. Had a career year. He had 66 total tackles. That's the most he's had in a season. He took kind of that year 3 jump. Now it's opportunity for him to take that. And then Xavier McKinney as well. A guy that, he's, health was an issue first year. Only played 6 games. Played a lot last year, and it was much better. 5 interceptions last season. 93 tackles. A guy that took that year 2 jump. And he's only 23. And you look at Dory Jackson too. Another guy who's the veteran in the room. And he's still only 26 years old. He only played 13 games last season, but in the games that he played, he still had the 3rd most tackles he's ever had in a season. So I like the Giants secondary, and like I said, they're up front. I mean, Dexter Lawrence, Leonard Williams, Thibodeau, and Azeez Ojulari. I see a lot of young pieces, and I see a lot of talented pieces. Now, to the Giants offense, I see injuries and a lot of question marks. So they got to get that ironed out in training camp. That's something that they'll have to get ironed out in training camp, and I'm sure they will. But I think that's, like I said, all the Giants' thought process was bringing an offensive line coach, fix this offense. Because the offense was atrocious last season. It really wasn't the defense, it was the offense. Like the Giants' defense, offense got question marks. But, I know this is asking for everything to fall in place. I know Andrew Thomas was better last year, so you hope that Thomas at left tackle, Evan Neal at right tackle, those could be your tackles for a long time. I know Thomas is an interesting player because struggled his rookie year, was better, and then just, he's a guy that we'll see. Another guy with a little bit of question marks. But you completely overhauled this offensive line. You got to hope these pieces fit in right. It's going to be I personally think for the Giants this year, I think it's going to be a year where it's going to be kind of one of these years, I feel like. And the reason I say that is because they have some stretches throughout. I don't think it's because of the team. I think it's because of some of the stretches. Like their schedule, and if you read the Giants' schedule, their schedule starts out very weird. Titans, don't know how I feel about that. It's going to be tough. Then the Panthers, that's winnable. Then the Cowboys, that's going to be tough. I don't care. People can make fun of Cowboys all they want. It's going to be a tough game, okay? Bears should be winnable. So what? You're looking maybe at 2-2. And then you have the Packers, Ravens. Those are two really tough games. One of them, you got to go out to London to play for that. And then you have the Jaguars, Seahawks, Texans, Lions. That's like an easy part of your schedule. And then after that, you got Cowboys, Commanders, Eagles, Commanders, Vikings, Colts, Eagles. That's a pretty tough way to end your year, especially if the Eagles are showing or are going to be what a lot of people expect them to be. Commanders are an interesting team, but they're a very interesting team. Colts, I think, are going to be solid this year. Vikings I think, are going to be better. It's a weird schedule for the Giants. It is. Because it starts out, like, the first 4 weeks, there's 2 games in there that you can win. At least 2. Now, possibly Carolina, if Baker Mayfield is on, like, the second week as the quarterback and he's tearing it up, maybe you lose there. But you're 2-2. Then you have the Packers and the Ravens. That's brutal. That's not going to be easy. But after that, you have 4 games that you should win. Now, we are talking about the Giants, right? And I don't mean that in a negative way, but the Giants are a rebuilding team. But then you have the Jaguars, Seahawks, Texans, Lions. I don't think the Giants are going to be a playoff team this year. But I'm not saying they're going to be a playoff team. I don't think they are going to be a playoff team. They're probably going to be a 5-6 win team. It's going to be a developmental year. It's going to be a progress year. I think they'll maybe reach the 6-win mark, 4 to 6 wins. It's going to be similar to the Jets last season, just because of the fact that they're mixing and mashing. They're seeing what pieces don't fit and what pieces fit. But you talk about an opportunity for Daniel Jones to prove himself. It's that 4-week range where you have the Jaguars, Seahawks, Texans, and Lions. He can really do some stat boosting there. Jaguars is definitely a win. Seahawks, but you look at these teams, but these teams too, I'm sure, are looking at it as, like the Giants, and they're looking at it like, oh, we got the Giants. That's the thing. I'll finish. I'll wrap up on this. This is my last thing. Okay. It's gonna be a developmental year for the Giants. We all know that, right? It's going to be. But it's all about hoping that your quarterback makes the jump, hoping that he shows progress, so you don't have to go into this offseason looking for a quarterback via the draft or whatever, right? Hope your offense stays healthy. Guys like Saquon Barkley have a good year and stay healthy. And most of all, your rookies do well. Specifically the premier, Evan Neal, and Kayvon Thibodeau. That's what you like to see out of the Giants this year, and especially with training camp. That's what you like to see throughout training camp. See Evan Neal, Kayvon Thibodeau make those strides, knock off the early struggles during training camp so they're ready to go in the regular season. So that's what I got for the Giants and their training camp preview. A lot of I'll tell you this, a lot of positive energy around both New York football teams. I think the Jets are definitely ahead of the Giants in terms of their rebuilding process and who's going to compete, really, truly compete first. I think the Jets should be much. Make fun of me all you want. Jets should compete this year. They have to compete this year. 8-9 wins is, they got to be somewhere around there. There's no other way to put it. Giants, though, it's going to be more developmental year, like I said, more what pieces fit, what pieces don't fit. Certain aspects of the Giants team, though, I really like, and we'll see how all those pieces fit during training camp and into the regular season. All right, so that's what I got for the Giants training camp preview. Now we're going to get to a little bit of baseball. Similar to yesterday, shifting gears from football to baseball. It's that time of year. I love it because it gives me a ton to talk about. It gives me as a fan a lot to be excited about. I'm pumped up about the Yankee game tonight, pumped up about Jets training camp. Even just watching the players walk into the facility just gets me excited because it just shows you that football's around the corner here. We shall see, and I believe that the Jets are supposed to have their players speak. Are supposed to have some guys speak later this morning. So it's 10:09 Eastern right now. I assume probably maybe an hour or two from now. They all got to get checked in and all that stuff. We'll hear a ton from the Jets throughout training camp, with their practice interviews and all that stuff. But anyway, we got to get to some baseball here. I talked about this on my Bubs Talking Baseball podcast that I do every Sunday about the Boston Red Sox. To say that they are struggling right now is an understatement. Red Sox right now find themselves, they are 2-8 in their last 10. They did get a win last night. They are 3-1. They got the win 3-1 last night. They're 17 games back in the AL East, 3 games back in the wild card race. And they are only a half game up on Baltimore in the wild card race and a half game up on Baltimore for last place in the division. They stand right now 49-48. And one thing that I think is really glaring to me is they have a run differential of -10. That's actually worse than the Orioles. The Orioles' run differential is -7. The Red Sox is -10. So they actually have a worse run differential than the Orioles. And the Red Sox have just been brutal this year. I mean, they've been all over the place. You split up what they've done this year. April was good or bad. May was better. June was better. Then July was really bad. So far in July, it's been terrible. Not so far. I mean, July's almost over. Today's July 26th. It's almost over. And they come out of a Blue Jays series where they got absolutely killed. We all know about that Blue Jays series. Now, I want to tell you this, right? Coming out of the All-Star break, teams should feel energized. You get that break. Come out of it, a little extra energy. Divisional opponent, at home, all that good stuff. Now, Red Sox come out of the All-Star break. They have 3 against Toronto. Toronto right now is playing some good baseball. They're 6-game win streak, 8-2 their last 10. 3 of those 6 wins coming against Boston. They have been the hot baseball team so far going into the break and coming out of the break. But what we saw take place Friday, Saturday, and Sunday could very well shift not only the way we view the Red Sox this year, but the way we view the Red Sox for the next couple seasons. Because the Red Sox, I personally think, after a loss like they took on Friday night, 28-5, and then the next day 4-1, and then the next day 8-4, could very well have shifted into a mode where they may sell at the deadline. You heard all the rumors about Bogarts maybe not signing elsewhere in the offseason. JD Martinez, what's going to happen with him? Well, as the Red Sox started to win, all those rumors kind of washed away. But now, the fact that they're 2-8 in their last 10, they're only a half game up on Baltimore for last place in the division. And by the way, it's a very strong division. Baltimore's only 3.5 games out of the wild card. And I truly believe Baltimore owes it to its fan base. The fact that they've been so bad for so long to not sell at the deadline. If anything, stay where they're at and try to make a push with the roster they've got. If they don't want to go all out and make moves and try to destroy their plan of young talent, I don't think Baltimore should sell at the deadline. I personally don't. I think they owe it to their fan base to make a push for the playoffs because they've been so bad. But the Red Sox, this not only dates back to, and this whole selling possibility not only goes back to that loss on Friday, but it goes back to the 2 losses they took prior to the break to the Yankees on Saturday of last week, July 16th. They lost 14-1. Then on July 17th, going into the All-Star break, lost 13-2. So I got to give you some numbers, right? Because I'll tell you this, just how a series or a stretch of games where if you win 10 straight games, you could turn into sellers to buyers just like that. I mean, you look at Baltimore, right? They were terrible. They won 9 straight. They were on this roll. Now all of a sudden, do they buy? Do they sell? It's up in the air. We'll see what they do August 2nd. Red Sox, on the other hand, everybody was like, all right, they'll probably stand pat. Now, the way they've been playing, they very well could have just turned into sellers based off of not only those games in Toronto, but the last 2 against the Yankees. Let me give you some numbers. 3 games versus the Blue Jays. 28-5, 4-1, 8-4. That's combined, they got outscored 40-10. The final two games versus the Yankees got outscored 27-3. That's a football score right there. Red Sox got a field goal. The Patriots got a field goal. Jets had 4 touchdowns and a missed extra point. Or maybe a field goal and 3 touchdowns. Right? Or 2 field goals and 3 touchdowns. However you want to put it. However you want to put it. Jets won 27-3 against New England. Final 2 games of the series. Now, out of those 5 games, 2 against the Yankees and the 3 against Toronto coming out of the All-Star break, they got outscored a combined 67-13. And now their run differential stands at -10. That's worse than the Baltimore Orioles. And I know the Orioles are better, but when you look at the roster, when you look at the expectations going into the season, Boston should not have a worse run differential than the Baltimore Orioles, and they do. And they're only a half game out of being last place in the division. Boston, people, I think they're going to sell. I mean, I could see both sides of it. I could see where they're, and you know what's tough for Boston too is right now is teams like Toronto, Tampa, and Seattle are all hot. Seattle's 7-3 in their last 10. Toronto 6-2 in their last 10. Tampa 6-4 in their last 10. I know Tampa's on a 3-game losing streak and they got some injuries. But you look at the current AL wild card. It's Cleveland's 3 games out, Boston's 3 games out, Baltimore's 3.5, Chicago's 3.5, and then Texas is 8, and that's just not going to happen. So those are your 4 teams that are on the outside looking in that all have shots at the playoffs. Blue Jays are hot right now. Tampa's hot. And here's my thing, you always look at the schedule to see. Going into the trade deadline, they're going to have 3 against the Brewers. They'll finish up a 3. They got a 4-game set, so they'll have 3 more against Cleveland right now. But then they got 3 against the Brewers and then 3 against the Astros. And that Astros series will take them to August 3rd, will be the final game of that 3-game set. So August 2nd is the deadline. So let's say they get swept by the Brewers, which is more than possible because the Brewers are a very good team, leading the NL Central right now over St. Louis. By 2 games, 53-44. A lot of people believe Milwaukee's a team that could win a World Series, and I think they could definitely make a push in the National League. But teams like the Mets and Dodgers are definitely up there. Braves, all those teams. It's National League stacked. It's going to be interesting to see how all that plays out. But there's very possible they get swept by the Brewers, and then they go to Houston, and they get swept by the Astros. And if you're in the middle of like a 5-6 game losing streak, and you find yourselves below 500, Red Sox definitely could sell. And it's a series like that against Toronto that can completely shift the way, completely shift the way the Red Sox organization, their front office views the deadline and views this season. Because the season for the Red Sox has been really understatement. And some of the injuries have been tough. And, Red Sox could take that route of saying, oh, look, we have injuries and all that stuff. We'll be all right once all of our guys come back. But Eovaldi came back off injury. He was the guy who started that Blue Jays game. When they lost 28-5. Sale came back, as we all know, got drilled in the pinky with a line drive, and it stinks to see that. But he's a guy, too, that, when will he be back? And if he comes back, can he stay healthy? It's all those things, like, you can't really rely on, great, all these pieces are coming back, that's great, but how are they going to fare? Just because they're coming back, that doesn't mean they're going to be great. It's possible you could trade a guy like a JD Martinez, trade him, and then, reset. The Red Sox did that with Mookie Betts. They got Verdugo in return. So, it's just, I just don't know. Because they have talent. Like, they have Devers, Bogarts, Story. Like, when you look at their roster, they have so much talent. Bullpen and pitching has been their biggest issue. Unless if you acquire some pitching and hope to go for it all. But they're 3 games out. Is it really worth it going all in? Or is it worth it going all, is it worth it kind of just standing pat and waiting and seeing what you can do with this team and then offload maybe in the off season? There's a lot of questions because it's not like the Red Sox team has a lot of talent. Like, believe me, Bogarts is going to be a name that teams are going to look for. Bogarts is going to be a name. You look at guys like JD Martinez, they're all going to be names that teams are going to love to have. I mean, they will all be names out there. It's just a matter of, do you do it now? Do you do it at the end of the year? Do you just stand pat and try to win with the team you got? I mean, I'll tell you what, though, getting embarrassed at home 28-5 and then losing the next 2 games without any fight. I mean, they can't even catch a fly ball. Jarren Duran looked lost in center field. I don't know. I think it'd be best if the Red Sox, I think, probably do sell. I think, but will they? I don't know. I mean, I would tend to say that right now they might sell a little bit. Maybe get rid of JD Martinez. I mean, I don't. Bogaerts, if he's just going to leave in the offseason and free agency, might as well get something for him now, while you can. It's just tough. I mean, even if you get rid of, let's say you get rid of Bogaerts and Martinez, you still have Devers, Verdugo, and a couple guys like that. You could build around for the next couple seasons. It's just, they've had so many bad losses, and it's just like so many moments where they just are they're playing like a bad team. And whenever you see that out of a team, that's when you kind of know, like, something's not right. We got to do something. So, interesting spot for the Red Sox. They're 1 game above 500. They're not out of it. They're not, like, 7 games out of the wild card. They're 3 games out. But, I mean, when you look at their schedule, and you look at that 6 games against Milwaukee and Houston going into the trade deadline, I mean, you could very well find yourself in the middle of a 4-game, 5-game losing streak and under 500 when the trade deadline comes around. So, really interesting situation in Boston. I love to see that they're strong because I hate the Red Sox, as you all know. But it's really pretty bad. It's bad. That 28-5 loss, like that very well could just be the big X no. We gotta turn. We gotta finish things off. We gotta trade away everything now. Because 67-13 combined in 5 games, especially in the middle of the All-Star break. Like, the All-Star break's an opportunity to reset. And I know the Yankees, too. I mean, that's what made those Yankees lost in Houston tough, too. Coming right out of the All-Star break. And you can look at it both ways. You can look at, coming right. I mean, but, coming out of the All-Star break, you got to expect you're facing a Toronto team that's hot going into the All-Star break, and they were hot coming out of it. I mean, you got to expect that. And to get blown out going into the break, come out of the break, get blown out, just a bad look for Boston. All right, so let's get to the New York Sports Update and finish things off here today on this BSN podcast. We're going to get to the games here. Cubs, Pirates, Reds, Marlins, Phillies, Braves, Orioles, Rays, Blue Jays, Cardinals, Red Sox, Guardians, Tigers, Padres, Royals, Angels, Twins, Brewers, White Sox, Rockies, Astros, A's, Giants, Diamondbacks, Nationals, Dodgers, and the Rangers, Mariners. Yankees, Mets tonight, game 1 of a quick 2-game set, Subway Series. Yankees come into tonight's game 66-31. Mets come into tonight's game 59-37. 7:10 Eastern, you can find on Yes and TBS. S&Y as well, all those channels. Yankees got Jordan Montgomery on the mound. He's 3-2 with a 3.24 ERA. And the Mets have Taijuan Walker on the mound. He's 7-2 with a 2.55 ERA. Over-under set at 8. Let's go Yankees, game 1 of the Subway Series, always exciting. As for fantasy baseball, I'm currently losing 60-20, so that stinks there, but got a lot of pieces. Oh, look, we just got this report. So according to Jeff Passan, rival executives don't expect Boston to trade star shortstop despite upcoming free agency. All right. I mean, that's, like I said, I don't understand that. Because if they're not going to sign him, if they're not going to re-sign him, might as well just trade him now before, if you're not going to re-sign Bogaerts, might as well trade him now when you can get something for him. Unless if they're going to go all out for him in the offseason, which if they miss the postseason this year, what's the point? I don't know. Really interesting spot the Boston finds themselves in. As for the as for my fantasy baseball pitching staff, I should say, Jose Barrios, Carlos Rodon, Taijuan Walker, I've all got going tonight. And as for my other league, I'm currently winning 24-18. And today I've got going Jose Barrios, Carlos Rodon, Michael Kopech, and Taijuan Walker. By the way, Bobby Witt's day to day. Like I said, in my main league, I got Barrios, Rodon, and Walker. Barrios has been better recently. He's been much better recently. He had his big 13K outing the other day against, or couple starts, 2 starts ago against Philly. Had a good start against Kansas City. So hoping if he can do the same tonight against St. Louis, we'll see. Alrighty, so that will do it for the podcast here today. By the way, it's Montgomery and Taijuan Walker tonight, Monty and Walker tonight, and then tomorrow night is Scherzer and Herman. So I don't like that because Herman's not very good. Scherzer's insane. But we shall see. So anyway, that will do it for the podcast here today. Another good podcast in the books. Looking forward to the game tonight. To those of you who are going out to Citi Field, enjoy the game. Energy should be electric. Buildings should be electric. Expect a very big crowd. I saw the Mets tweeted something out on Twitter yesterday, like arrive early or something. Use mass transit or something like that because you got to expect big crowds. And I'm sure the Yankees will do the same when they host in August, which will be the second round of the Subway Series. So enjoy the game tonight. Game 1 of the 2-game set Subway Series. So enjoy that. And as always, I will see you all back here tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.